Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leslie Matos. This is where I share about birth, faith, and family. I am a disciple, a wife, a mother, and a doula. Today I will be sharing just a quick little word on faith. So feel free to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you like this video. We're gonna dive right in. So today I wanna share about Jericho. So this is a little bit about what the Lord has been speaking to me during my quiet time, during my study, and just a nice short word that I wanted to share with you guys in hopes that it encourages you the way that it encouraged me. So, bringing down the walls of Jericho, right, was amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you don't know the story, go ahead and read the book of Joshua. It's right in the first couple chapters, just to see how God brought down the walls of Jericho, and God's people, Israel, were able to conquer this powerful city, right? So it says, when you start reading the story, it says that the walls of Jericho were locked up because of Israel, because of the children of Israel. They heard what God had done at the Jordan River, how he had parted the Jordan River for the Israelites to walk across on dry land. And because of that, all the people around them were like, okay, we're gonna protect ourselves. Jericho locked up the walls to not let people in or out. That's when they were on patrol. They saw, wow, these people have a mighty God. They walked across the river. Mind you, 40 years before, he had parted the Red Sea. And people often talk about that, talk about how Moses put in his staff and they walk across, but people rarely talk about how God parted the Jordan River for his people to come into the promised land. But this is a great feat of what God did here. And actually, during that time, it says that they went and made a memorial at the river, at Gilgal, where they were stationed, from the river, as a memorial of stones. They called them standing stones. They carried each man from a tribe, each tribe carried one stone and stacked it up. And it was a sign of what God had done when he parted the Jordan River to allow them to walk across. And they left this as a symbol that, like, this is for you to tell your children and your children's children to remember what I've done. Remember my faithfulness to you. And it's interesting that they had a way to remember, but it was also known by all the people around, and they knew, okay, Israelites are not to be messed with. We're gonna lock up our walls. And so that's what Jericho did. But these standing stones, this was really impactful for me, because we all have standing stones in our life. We all have Jordan rivers. We all have these moments. We all have these experiences in life where God has made the impossible happen for us. God has made a way for us where we didn't see one. And these are great occasions for us to have our own standing stones, for us to have our own way of remembering that. Whether maybe you journal, maybe you take pictures, maybe you are an artist, you draw, whatever it is, however it is that you record these moments, I encourage you to start making memorials for yourself of all the ways that God has been faithful. You know, this year, I had a couple of friends who shared about a prayer box where they actually every single week put in this little prayer box, just put a prayer that God has answered, or a prayer of praise for God, and just thanking him. And they've put it in this box. It's actually something that I started to do this year as well. I made a jar, and whenever I see the jar, I try to put something in it to add, to just say, okay, this is just a moment of prayer of praise and thanksgiving to God for something he's done. And just write a little note of like what he's done, and I put it in there. And then at the end of the year, I'm gonna open it up with my family, and we're going to read through how faithful God has been this year. And when I read about these standing stones, I thought about that. And it was right around the same time my son was turning a year old. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I've been trying to write as often as I can, or doing a voice memo or something of like the faithfulness of God in his life. But I was like, I did it all throughout his pregnancy, but this first year, first year motherhood, it gets a little bit hard. And so I took some time at around his first year and started just kind of recording these moments for myself with pictures, and just saying, oh wow, this picture reminds me of this and this and this. Just recording it and just writing a little note on the back of the card of God's faithfulness. And this has been absolutely amazing to look back at. I have them hanging up so that I can keep them just as a little memory, just a visual for right now of all the ways that God has been faithful to us and to our family. And this is helping to encourage me, just especially as I start to approach our next birth and all the things that are happening, especially in the midst of coronavirus and the season where a lot of things in the world can be really discouraging. And it's always nice to be able to just pick up something or look around the house and say, wow, a reminder of how faithful God has been, regardless of the mess that the world throws at us, regardless of the craziness that comes at us. God is faithful. We all have standing stones. God has parted a Jordan River for all of us. And so let's remember those times. Let's mark them. And so listen, if you have ideas of how you've done this, I shared with you guys a couple of mine: prayer box, photos, journaling. Please share them down below. I would love to hear about how you mark down God's faithfulness in your own life, so you have memorials of that as well that you can then share on with your children and your children's children, and things like that. So I would love to hear about that. Just leave a comment down below and share that with me. I would love to hear from you. Also, one of the other things that I just really stood out to me about when he brought down the walls of Jericho is that he told them to shout, for the Lord has given you the city. That's what he said in Joshua 6:6. It says, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. And when you look up that word shout in Hebrew, it talks about a shout of alarm, a shout of war, but also a shout of rejoicing and triumph. And that's what they were doing. They were rejoicing and they were shouting of their triumph that God had done. They had done absolutely nothing. They walked around the wall for 6 days straight. On the seventh day, they were told to shout. They were told to play the trumpets. Like, that's it. They did absolutely nothing. God did it for them. But they're to shout in praise and in rejoicing and in triumph of what God has done. And so that is why the standing stones are so great, because they remind us to shout. They remind us to thank God. They remind us to lift up a prayer of praise and worship unto our God for all that he has done in our lives. And so I hope that this encourages you, mamas, that listen, in those moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, today is just, it's rough, it's hard, to look and say, oh, there's a picture. And what's that picture say? Oh, that picture reminds me of God's faithfulness when my son had a cold and how he saw us through. So, oh, that reminds me. That picture reminds me of God's faithfulness when we were in that financial predicament and he made a way for us out. Oh, let me just open up this journal and open up to any random page and just read just a word of praise, to remind you of God's faithfulness in your life, to help encourage you in those tough moments. All right, that's all I've got for you today. But feel free to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be alerted next time I put out a new video, and share this with a friend who you think this might encourage. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.